Hi, welcome for joining us today. We're here at the Garantme headquarters with the CEO of Garantme. Maybe you can tell us a bit more about yourself and who you are and your background.
Yeah, so I'm Thomas, co-founder and CEO of Garantme. We actually created the company 8 years ago now, just starting the eighth year.
Congratulations.
And well, our job is to help tenants access housing, even if they don't check all the criteria that the landlords expect. We've been doing that for 8 years now, and we have helped more than 150,000 tenants so far.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And so maybe you can tell us more about how you created Garantme.
It's quite a funny story because we were students when we created the company. It's actually a student project that we were supposed to conduct at the end of our major at HEC in 2017.
Okay.
And it turned out to work well, so we chose to make it an actual company.
That's amazing. Was it just yourself or was it someone else too?
So I co-founded the company with Emile,
Okay, yeah.
a friend of mine, which I met back then. Emile is Lebanese.
Okay.
So as a foreigner supposed to settle in France, he actually, had the biggest problem they all have, which is you need a guarantor to find your apartment.
I know
the guarantor, the guarantor should be living in France.
Yeah.
So if your parents are abroad, you basically have no solution.
Exactly. Actually, that's one of our problems here at Easy Start too, is that a lot of our clientele are internationals. So that's the reason why we're coming to you, to see how basically Garantme can help internationals, find their dream apartment, basically. So maybe you can tell me more about like your services and your, unique, value proposition, what you guys do to help internationals coming in.
Well, as a tenant in France, like in any other country, you would have to, file an application to get the apartment. There is a slight difference with other countries. The landlords will require what we call a guarantor. And the guarantor is the person who is supposed to pay the rent if you fail to do so. And they want the guarantor to live in France. So as a foreigner, you actually basically know no one who could do that for you. So that's why we created the service. So that landlords can actually say yes to your application because you have an official guarantor backing your application.
Okay. And how does that work in terms of being guarantored by, Garantme with the landlord? Like, how do you reassure the landlord that they would be assured, basically?
Yeah. So we act as a broker.
Okay.
And we actually have insurance companies who are able to face any financial requirements.
Okay.
So they're actually stronger than any physical guarantor. The tenant would actually come on the platform, garantme.fr. They would file an application, and we commit to check their application within 8 hours.
Okay.
So that they know whether we're ready or not to back their application.
That's true. You guys are very quick in your response time. Working with the Garantme has been really top-notch because each time we have a client here at Easy Start, it's been really quick to get your guarantee and very easy to get an apartment afterwards. We've never actually had an issue getting an apartment through you guys.
I like to hear that. Because speed is actually the main criteria, success criteria to find your apartment. There's a lot more applicants than offers on the market. So you need the first one. You need to be the first one to have a complete application and a solid one.
That's true. That's true. Well, what about like, do you collaborate with universities or something? Do you only focus on specific target market? But who's your ideal clientele, essentially?
Well, since the landlord is actually choosing who is the tenant, we dedicate all our energy to convincing landlords and agencies to select our tenants. So we actually have a network of partners, more than 4,000 real estate agencies all over France.
Wow.
And another 4,000 student residencies all over France. And we have a sales team partnering with those guys so that when a tenant applies with them, they are actually selected.
So maybe we can ask you a very serious question here, because a lot of our clientele, mostly internationals, don't understand why they need to have a guarantor in France. Can we maybe explain the reasonings behind that?
Yeah, I remember that when I moved to the UK as a student, no one asked me for a guarantor. So when people come to France, they might be surprised. There is a simple reason behind that. There is in France actually a very protective law for the tenants once they are in the apartment. So because the tenant is so protected, the landlord wants to protect themselves while the tenant is not in. Protecting themselves means choosing the right tenants. So they choose the tenant whose ability to pay is the highest. So they ask tenants to have a individual file which is strong, but also a guarantor file which is strong.
Yeah.
So if you don't have the guarantor, your parents, for instance, well, they will tell you to go see someone else.
Okay, yeah, that's very true. And also, even with like a physical guarantor, if they even have a French guarantor here in France, sometimes it's not always the case where they can get chosen either, right? Because it needs to be a good dossier. Dossier is a rental application, by the way.
Yeah, well, you might have a good French guarantor. They want the guarantor to be French because it's legally easier to get the money from them if they live in France. But then they will ask, what is the link between you and this person?
Right.
If they are your parents, they will understand there is a strong link, so they will trust the guarantor. But if they're just your friend, they might question, okay, is the guarantor really reliable in case of issue? So they'd rather reject your guarantor if it's just a friend.
Interesting. Well, I know that, there's a few different types of private insurers here for rental market, but I know that there's also the government one called Vital. So what's better in terms of choosing Vital than Garantme, for example, or choosing Garantme than Vital? What makes you guys different?
The thing is, either the landlord chooses your application or he doesn't. So what we try to do at Garantme is convince the largest part of landlords as possible. I think we have the largest network in France, which make it easier for tenants to be chosen.
Right.
So it's not so much about what is the best guarantee. The best guarantee is the one which is chosen by the landlord because you actually want the keys to get in the apartment.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. Okay. I mean, also, yeah. What I realize is that, the government takes a lot of time here. It's the French administration.
And the landlord doesn't have time.
Yeah, exactly. They just want their money.
They have 50 applicants. They are not going to wait for any governmental agency or anyone to provide a guarantee. They will take the first application, which is complete and solid.
Exactly. And personally, if I was a landlord, I would definitely want to use Garantme than Vital. Not that Vital is bad, but definitely better to have your money first, right? So maybe let's go, let's talk about more about like the key hurdles for international renters. For like language barriers and the financial requirements and everything like that, do you guys have like a multicultural team here that speaks different languages from all over the world for your clients?
Yeah, so of course, 50% of our applicants are foreigners. So, of course, we tried to adapt to that. Our website is translated into French, English, and Chinese because we have a lot of Chinese people applying. And we expect all the others to, speak English.
Yeah.
But we have a multicultural team helping them during two steps. The first step is, filing your application and making it complete. We try and adapt to each profile. So if you're a student, you will have a given flow. If you are a young worker or a freelancer, you will have another flow adapted to your situation.
Okay.
And once your application is certified, we will help you find your apartment. And there the team speaks 4 different languages. We speak English, French, Spanish, and Arabic. Okay,
wow, that's very multicultural here then. That's very good. Maybe like going back to what you just said in terms of, if you're a student, if you're, for example, a freelancer coming in, or if you're a family, et cetera, are there any differences in terms of being guaranteed by Garantme?
Yeah, so we have different selection criteria. Any student would be eligible, for instance, based on their status. So you're a student, we can guarantee your application.
Wow, hear that. Okay.
Once you are a worker, a young worker, or moving in with your family as an expat, for instance, we would check your application and ability to pay the rent with your own resources.
Sure.
So we would ask you to provide your pay slips, for instance, if you have any, or your tax income, whether it's in France or abroad. So we would accept your resources in euros, but also in other currencies, revenues in France or abroad. And we basically adapt the application process to your situation. So I would recommend the applicants to provide all the documents that they expect to, well, explain that situation best. Because we always think that you have to adapt. I mean, as a tenant, we believe that we have to adapt to the cultural context of the country.
Right.
At Garantme, we believe that we have to do it the other way. We adapt to your situation.
Okay, that's very good. And for the entrepreneurs, for example, I'm guessing it's a kind of a different situation because, well, for example, we have entrepreneurs coming here, freelancers. They create their business as a solo entrepreneur here in France. But then they say, oh, but I don't have a KBs, for example, because Garantme does, ask for KBs. In that situation, what do they do?
So if you are an entrepreneur coming from abroad, we would ask proof of your revenues. You don't have KBs, for instance, but you have a certificate of registration in your country that we can accept.
Okay.
And if you have no proof of revenues that is acceptable in France, we would ask you to provide proof of your bank statements so that we can actually see the money that is coming in.
Okay.
So basically, we find the solutions to each situation.
Okay. And in terms of like acceptance rates, are you able to give us that number?
Yeah, there is about 50% acceptance rate.
50 acceptance.
Most of the rejected cases are because the application is not complete.
Okay.
And sometimes it's our fault because the tenant actually doesn't understand what they should provide and they don't provide it.
Okay.
That's why I'm saying you could provide any document that you believe explains your situation the best.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's where we come in, guys, at Easy Start. Because we do help in terms of, they come to us saying, okay, what kind of document should we provide Garantme? Sometimes they do provide these documents, but then we realize, oh, actually, these are not the correct type of documents. You should provide more proof, I would say. And in France, obviously, the more documents, the more proof you have, the better of acceptance, I would say. That's like the motto at French administration in France. Okay, that's great. So maybe let's go and dive into like the tech-driven solutions aspects of the Garantme. What made you decide to be more tech-driven than like the traditional paperwork type of,
Well, we have a strong belief, which is one, real estate is a human topic, but then tech is necessary if you want to go fast. So we tried to build tech at every step of the process to save time on checking applications. So we have robots checking documents, but also a human team which is here over the phone, for instance, to answer your questions regarding your application. And the more tech we have to check it, the more time we have to be over the phone with you.
Right.
That's the first thing. And the second thing is we need to make supply and demand meet. So what we do with tech is we collect the available apartments of our partners so that our team knows where the applicants can go and have the best chances to be selected.
Okay.
And again, because we know the availabilities of our partners live, well, we are able, when we are over the phone, to tell you, okay, you should go to this agency, you should go to this residence. They have availabilities for you.
So your customer service your team tells, the tenants who are searching for an apartment, actually, this agency here is really good. They will accept Garantme. Do you provide like a list of agencies or?
We even go further. During certain periods of the year, we have the actual availabilities, apartment by apartment, for our partners. And we could send those availabilities to the tenants or to the partner managing their application.
That's very interesting and very good for us to know. Okay, and what about the technology? Have you, obviously AI is becoming such a big thing now. Are you guys also incorporating type of AI into your system, or are you trying to keep away from that aspect?
So far, AI for us has been useful, not client-facing, but for the back office tasks such as checking applications. So we use AI to check documents, payslips, or tax statements, for instance. We haven't been so far as to use it for client-facing missions, but of course we are thinking about it.
Okay, that's very good. Maybe if we could just like backtrack into the customer service aspect of Garantme, maybe you could tell us a little about like the customer journey that go through with your team to get the guarantee certificate.
Yeah, so first step is apply on the website.
Yep.
You would have to file an application. It's about 5 minutes mission. Once you have submitted your application, our team checks it. Our commitment is to do it within 8 hours. So you should have an answer from us in 8 hours.
I like that, fast and efficient.
If it's complete and eligible, you're certified. If it's not complete, we would send you a review asking for more information, and then you resubmit your application.
Okay.
Once you are certified, we have a team of 20 people who are here to help you find your apartment. They can either send you availabilities from our partners, or they can also support your application process. So for instance, if you apply and the landlord has question about your application or about the guarantee, they're here over the phone and can answer the landlord's questions.
Okay. And in terms of customer service, how do they have a specific conseil or consultant that works with them directly, or how does that work in terms of your...
Yeah, so the team of 20 at Garantme, each of them has
like their own
a
account.
pool of applicants who they help step by step. Usually the research process is 2 weeks.
Okay.
So you would talk to this guy during 2 weeks.
Okay. And they can contact you guys at any time, essentially.
Yeah, we're open from 9 in the morning to 7 p.m. every day of the week, even Saturdays and Sundays. Because we know that the moment when you search for apartment is in the weekends, actually.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes, people get freaked out during the weekends because here in France, things are closed most of the time. So that's good to know that
some
people
real estate agencies and also student residencies are open during the weekends, especially not on Sundays, but especially on Saturdays, because they know it's the moment the tenant is available for visits or signing the lease.
That's really nice. You said that students are usually like your main
it's about
users, I would say, right?
Students are about 50% of our customers.
Wow, okay.
The remaining 50% are short-term contractors, freelancers, expats coming from abroad, but also full-time employees who don't meet the criteria, which is I don't earn 3 times the rent.
That's exactly what it is. For example, for those who are just starting their jobs, for example, international starting their jobs, CDI, but they're on a trial period because here in France, there's a période d'essai, that's what we say.
Yeah.
You help with this, right? This is a problem.
Yeah, the trial period is basically a 3 to 6 months period at the beginning of your contracts, during which the landlord is not reassured because you might lose your job from one day to the other. So they would ask for a guarantor in this period. Yeah.
And so how does that work essentially with Garantme? Like, for example, if you are going to accept a dossier, accept an application through Garantme, being like, I don't know if this person is going to have their job at the end, what kind of documents should they provide in that aspect then if they don't even have the pay slips?
So we try to check 3 things in your application. Yeah. Your revenues are sufficient to pay your rent.
Okay.
They are recent.
Yeah.
So they don't date back to 3 years ago when you had another situation. And we estimate that they are sustainable. You will have those revenues next month.
Right.
So you need to provide us information that makes us believe those 3 things.
And worst case scenario, if that doesn't happen, what happens?
If we don't have one of those 3, you're not eligible.
In terms of, for example, they lose their contract at work, for example.
Oh, so once we have certified your application, if you lose your contract, we cannot do anything about it. So once you're eligible for the next 3 months. Okay,
because they pay right away, right?
Yeah. So if you move in your apartment in the 3 months following your certification, well, you're eligible for the full duration of the lease. That's
really good to know. So they don't get kicked out of their apartment if they don't, even if they lose their job.
The only reason why they would be kicked out of the apartment if they don't pay the rent.
Exactly, but technically also, right, in France, you can't even it's really hard to get kicked out of an apartment, right?
Well, that's where we step in, and that's also a reason why the landlord trusts us. Yeah. It's because of our ability to conduct the legal procedure against the tenant if they fail to pay the rent.
Okay.
It usually takes time for landlord because the private landlord is a bit lost in all those paperwork and legal stuff. As insurance professionals, we have the right lawyers, bailiffs, and also we invested in tech so that the procedure goes really fast.
Right.
And that's one of the main reasons why the landlord would choose you as a tenant in the first place, because they know that if there is a problem, it would go fast.
Okay. Okay, this is very interesting to know. Obviously, payment, paying you guys how much it's going to cost differentiates on each, dossier, right? Maybe you can explain that to me more.
Yes. So if we come back to the process that we just described, you're eligible to a certain limit of rent, let's say €1,000. And then you will find your apartment. The landlords will edit what we call the lease, so it's your rental contract. And to get the guarantee, we need to get this lease. Based on the lease information, we will draft the guarantee, and we will only send it to the landlord if you pay us a percentage of your rent, so it's 4.5% of your rent. So basically for a €1,000 monthly rent, it costs €45. And the payment is annual. It's a yearly payment. So it would cost €500 for a full year. Once you pay, well, we send the guarantee to the landlord and they know they can finally sign the lease with you and give you the keys.
Okay, that's perfect. So they have to give the guarantee there, exactly, right?
Yeah.
Just to recap about what you just said. So basically they would go onto the platform, they would apply on your platform, provide all the necessary documents, etc. Then it would take around 8 hours, right, to validate for a certificate. But the certificate is not the actual guarantee yet. It's just to help you find the apartment.
Yes, it's a document that says, okay, to the landlords, if you want to rent your apartment to these tenants, we could be the guarantor.
Yeah.
And here are the conditions. If you want the actual guarantee, send us the lease.
Okay.
So this document is important for the tenant to provide to any landlord or agency during their apartment search. And if the landlord doesn't understand the document, well, there is the phone support, customer success team at Garantme, which is
you guys kind of convince them, right, to push the guarantee. Okay, that's interesting. And so after that, they get accepted by a landlord, and then afterwards they would give the certificate to the landlord, and then they have to validate it to be able to go into the apartment. And then that's when you explained, okay, the validation process, payment process beforehand, and then they can get the key in hand. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay. In terms of, the payments, I think you guys have a simulator as well in terms of the payment plan on your website. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah. If you go to the website, garantme.fr, and you have a pricing section, you can simulate your price.
Okay. And do you guys offer, I know some people ask for maybe flexible payment plans. Is that something that you guys do too, or it needs to be a one-time upfront?
So it's a yearly payment upfront. Yeah. If the tenant asks for it, we can split it into 2 parts, which we do sometimes.
Yeah.
Under certain conditions. And then you would have to renew your payment for the 2nd year.
Okay, that's perfect. Sounds good. Maybe moving forward, because we don't have that much time, you can tell us more about one success story that you remember.
Of course, there is one tenant that I remember about because, well, I was kind of proud of it. I knew that I was a Tunisian student. She was supposed to come and study in France, in Paris. And actually, her application was rejected by every landlord because she had no guarantor. Oh. And she, in the first place, she decided to forsake her project, to stay in Tunisia and basically do her studies somewhere else. It was a shame because I think when you plan to go abroad for your studies, it's because you have a life project, a professional project, which is really structuring for your future. And well, I'm proud to say that because of us, you can actually make your dream come true and come and study here.
That's great. I mean, I'm sure you have a lot of success stories, but it's nice to have that one in particular, I guess. Especially when you first started, right? It must feel really good to be able to help people.
I remember this one because back then, it was 6 years ago, I used to be over the phone with the students, so you get quite emotionally involved in the selling process.
Yeah.
I'm sure that we have this kind of story every day, actually.
Same, us too at Easy Start. We're really involved with our own clients too. So I like the fact that we both share that as well as, founders, that we're there to help people. That's our main goal there, is to help people, and we feel good about it, right? Is there like a message that you want to tell international people looking to potentially use Garantme, like a last message?
Yes, I want everyone to feel confident that when you want to settle in France, you can actually do it. I remember that before we created the company, it was tough to find an apartment as an international, but also as a French person who doesn't have a guarantor. And I'm proud to say that today it is a lot easier because we've done a lot of work to make real estate agencies, private landlords, and student residencies accept our system. So you can be confident that it works.
Honestly, well done with everything that you've done so far. And I think you've helped a lot of people be able to find their dream home. Not easy here.
Yeah, we've helped 150,000 tenants so far.
Wow, that's really like an achievement, truly. You should be proud of yourself. Well, thank you so much, Thomas, for meeting up with us. I appreciate your time. And
thank you.
It was good to meet you.
Good to meet you.